Gary, you've got some other spots in the New Testament that are multiply attested to that talk about Jesus being God.
Yes, first of all, Craig's got some of the best work out here on Mark 14, and I think Son of Man, Son of God, two titles that really, really deserve attention to get it back to Jesus. But I would make the claim that we don't wait decades to see the deed of Jesus. This is not an evolved doctrine. In fact, I would make the statement, might sound a little stunning to some, but I would say that if we use only the pre-Christian hymns, confessions, creeds, the embeddedness, these embedded statements, dozens of them in the New Testament, if we use only those comments, with the possible exception of John, possibly including John, that deserves some discussion, but arguably the highest or nearly the highest Christology can be taken from these embedded sayings alone. So if you go back to the earliest statements about Jesus, I'm talking about what do we do with the text like Romans 10:9, when just a few verses later, it's clear that Lord, in that context, confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God's raised him from the dead. And just 10:13, the Lord is Jehovah, Yahweh from the Old Testament. And so it's pretty clear what Paul's saying here, but that's not Paul. It's a pre-Pauline confession. Romans 1:3 and 4, where the names Lord, Son of God, and Messiah are used in context, and we're told that he gave proof of all these things. He gave witness of all these things by being raised from the dead. I'm thinking you have to do something with Philippians chapter 2. The two bookend verses, Philippians 2:6, with the in the form, the morphe of God, balanced with 2:11, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess, which of course comes from the book of Isaiah, where the same language is not only used of Yahweh, but he says, I will not share my glory with another. And this is attributed to Jesus. And even that Johannine prologue in the first 18 verses, what you do with that, bookend verses, I would suggest like the bookend verses in Philippians chapter 2. You've got the Word was God, and 1:18, the only, in the better manuscripts, the only begotten God in the bosom of the Father. So bookends in John 1, bookends in Philippians 2, Romans 1, Romans 10. You have those early Acts sermon portions where Jesus is given very lofty titles. And I think when you have this combination of what Jesus said about himself and what the earliest church said, some New Testament scholars move these things, these Acts comments even, to the 30s AD. 1 Corinthians 15, to before Paul's conversion. These are early attestations. So when people say, and the implication is almost always there, well, after decades, they copied off the mystery religions and they began to realize he was a god. First of all, you go to Jesus, and then it's there in the earliest embedded comments that are taken from the early preaching and later recorded in the pages of the New Testament.